Hey everyone, this is ML Reads with Chapter 10, Part A of the Elementalists Book 1 by Pixelberry Studios Choices app. If you want to watch any of the other videos in this series, I will link the main playlist in the description. And for everyone else, let's keep going with Chapter 10, Smoke and Mirrors. It's the fight of your life. Will your powers hold up against this threat? Continue playing. Very exciting times. The Elementalists. Chapter 10, Smoke and Mirrors. Okay, so previously on the Elementalists. Now, basically, we've just been sucked into this strange alternate dimension and there's a giant shadow monster that's attacking us. And here we are. You're standing in a strange space devoid of colour, having just been pulled through a glowing mirror. Other mirrors are scattered about, their reflections dim. A giant shadow creature towers over you, blocking your only escape route. And it's this huge giant shadow monster. It's the one that I suppose that attacked us in our nightmare at the very start of the book. So that's that. A giant shadow monster. It's glowing red, or it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me. Shadow monster. Roar. Sorry, I can't do roars. Eli, what the? Smoke billows out of the monster's mouth as it barrels directly at you. You barely manage to leap out of the way, falling to the ground. The monster lunges at you, but just before its claws rake over you, there's a flash of light. And it's Professor Swan. Professor Swan, that's enough. Professor Swan strides across the ground, hand raised and glowing with a bright light. The creature shields its eyes with an arm, stumbling back, and you scramble to your feet. Shadow monster, roar! Eli, Professor, how did you... Professor Swan, the mirror dimension was calling to me. I knew you must have been in danger. You need to get out of here, now. Eli, right, on it. The monster roars and takes a massive leap forward, heading right for you. Shadow monster, grrr. I should hide behind a tree. I apologize for my roars, but you get the idea. You roll across the ground and hide behind the tree. The monster slams into the ground where you once were, its head whipping around to find you. Eli, too close. The monster snarls and sniffs, moving around the tree. Professor Swan launches another beam of light at it. Professor Swan, get away from her. The creature recoils, leaping back with a pained hiss. Shadow monster. Professor Swan, through that mirror, quickly! You turn and run, but look back to see the monster raise a massive clawed hand. A swirling ball of energy appears in it, kicking up a whirlwind that pulls Professor Swan closer. The monster launches the vertex at her. It slams into her and swallows her in darkness. You see her face for one last second before she disappears. Professor Swan, and Professor Swan's surprised. Oh no! Eli, no! The vortex closes and Professor Swan is gone. The monster turns back to you, its eyes narrowing. Eli, crap! You break into a sprint, heading straight at the mirror Professor Swan pointed out. The monster takes off after you, quickly gaining speed. As soon as you're close to it, you leap through the portal. And then there's a flash of white, and then you crash into Professor Swan's office. Eli, come on, come on! You knock over a pile of books and a few potion bottles as you struggle to move through the clutter, racing for the door. Student, and it's the girl who taught us the solar flare spell, so green shirt student. Are you all right there? I heard someone shouting. A student peeks into the room, her eyebrows knit together in confusion. Eli, move! We've got to get out of here! Student, what are you... As she speaks, the monster's massive arm bursts out of the mirror. It flails wildly, grabbing the armchair and tossing it to the side. Student, ah! Eli, run! The student steps forward, her hands glowing with flames as she slings a fireball at the creature's arm. Student, that should slow it down. The fireball sinks into the shadows as though absorbed by them. Student, or not? Yeah, we all try to throw fire at it and it doesn't work. The monster's hand lurches, slamming into the student and throwing her across the room. As she crashes into the wall, books come showering down. Student, oof! Eli, are you okay? Student, no! I just wanted some career advice. No, I'm fighting an invincible shadow arm. I'm not okay. The hand whips back to you, latching onto your leg and pulling you toward the mirror. The student struggles to her feet, stumbling toward you. Eli, I should grab onto the other student. You reach out and grab onto the other student's arm, holding tightly. Student, I've got you. Eli, don't let go. The other student nods and starts pulling, trying to free you from the mirror. You feel the monster's grip on your leg begin to weaken. Eli, it's working. The student's hands glow again, and the surface of the mirror bubbles and stretches. Student, she's cast some spell. Just a little more. The monster's face bursts through the mirror. Shadow monster. Grrr. The roar shakes the room, and the student's eyes go wide before her whole body crumples. She slumps to the ground, unconscious. Eli, and she fainted. The monster turns back to you, narrows its eyes, and gives a yank on your leg, pulling you back into the mirror dimension. As your vision returns, the monster tosses you away from the mirror. You land with a splash in a pool of water. You shakily get to your feet, noticing that your surroundings seem backwards. A mirror of what they were before, and everything's like back to front. Eli, what's with this place? The ground shakes as the monster begins stalking toward you. Eli, I can't outrun this thing. I'll have to fight it. And she's like thinking that. In tune with your thoughts, Butterball materializes at your side, sending a ripple through the water. His lips curl back, baring his teeth as he snarls at the monster. Butterball, Butterball, rrr. And he's like snarling at the monster. Across the way, the monster flexes clawed fingers. When it sees Butterball, it hisses. Shadow monster, ksh. The monster charges straight for you, and you and Butterball barely leap out of the way in time. The monster collides with the mirrors shattered throughout the room. Bits of metal and broken glass shower down and clatter against the ground. Eli, got any ideas, Butterball? Butterball, Earth? Butterball nudges your leg, looking at a mirror across the way. You follow his gaze and spot a shimmering sword sticking right out of the center. That's convenient. And there's this like sword, and it's like smoking. It's smoking. Eli, I bet that could deal some serious damage. Shadow monster. Eli, but getting it isn't going to be easy. The monster blocks your path to the sword, but there's a gap for you to race through, right between its legs. Butterball, yep. Eli, yeah, we're on the same page. Are we doing this? Tutorial. Take the mirror dimension sword to gain an advantage in the fight and against other dangers that come your way. I should, and then so we have a premium choice here. The premium choice is get the sword, and the free choice is I should leave it behind. We're going to take the premium choice. I should get the sword. Excalibur! You take a deep breath and rush at the monster. It makes a grab for you, but you dive between its legs, ducking down low. You race over to the mirror and grab hold of the sword, trying to pull it out. It doesn't budge, and the ground shakes as the monster steps towards you. This better come out, like I paid diamonds for this, Eli. Come on! You give another hard pull, and the sword rips free of the mirror. Power hums through you as you turn to face the shadow, who's nearly on top of you again. Shadow monster. Rrr. The monster swings a massive arm at you, but you slash with your sword. The blade carves straight through the creature, slicing its arm clean off. Eli, this thing is amazing! Yeah, it's a cool sword. The arm hits the ground, and your sword glows. It sucks in all of the shadows, vibrating with energy as the creature wails. Shadow monster. Roar! Eli, it's like it absorbed some of the monster's power. While the monster is still stunned, you twirl the sword in your hand and smoke shoots out of it. It's like in Black Clover, Asta's sword. The tendrils twist around the creature, digging in until you can see the glowing red core at its center. Eli, whoa! The monster bares its teeth at you. The shadows from the rest of its body fill in where its arm used to be, creating a new one before covering up the core. Eli, oh come on, that's not fair. You and Butterball take off running to put some distance between you and the monster. When you glance back, you see it grab a mirror, lifting it over its head and hurling it at you. Eli, ah! As the mirror flies at you, you watch it carefully and time slows, the world around you blurring as you focus. Can we like jump through it like in Red vs. Blue? Without thinking, you spread your arms out and clap them above your head. Eli, Solus! Oh, okay, we're just defending. Immediately, your shield pops up around you and Butterball, and the mirror bounces off it harmlessly. Eli, that was way too close. Butterball, arr? The monster slams its fists on the ground, glaring at you. Shadow monster. Grrr. You and Butterball duck behind a mirror, hiding. You dig through your bag, looking for anything to aid you, and find the blue marble you bought from Asta. Eli, there's a bunch of water here. I bet this marble can help me use it to my advantage. I should, and so the options are use the blue marble or save it. We are going to save this for a later point in the story. I should save it. Eli, I might need this later. You put the marble back into your bag and step out from behind the mirror to face the monster. Shadow monster. Grrr! Red smoke flickers out of its mouth and nose, and it charges you again. You quickly look around, noticing that the mirrors are made of metal and wood. Hint, hint, hint. I should attack with metal. You reach toward the mirrors with your magic. Eli, let's do this, Butterball. Butterball, arr, arr. Your magic twines with Butterballs and the mirrors shatter. You send sharp pieces of glass flying into the creature, stabbing it. Shadow monster, arr. Eli, take that. The monster rips out one of the shards and drops it into the water with a splash. It narrows its eyes at you. Eli, I think I just made it angrier. Butterball, oh. Oh, sorry. Oh, I can't do these sounds. Eli, come on, Butterball. Let's get him again. Butterball, arr, arr. You link your index and middle fingers together at your chest and concentrate on the pool of water surrounding one of the nearby trees. Eli, Rathena. You separate your fingers and a thick, sappy rope of resin stretches between them. With a wave of your hand, you send it flying at the monster. Shadow monster, grah! The resin coats the monster, tangling around it and sticking to its shadowy form. Oh, okay, so this works. Eli, yes! The monster struggles against the group, and, unable to free itself, it roars. A huge, swirling ball of shadows appears in its mouth and comes hurtling toward you. You ready yourself and swing your sword just as the shadow ball approaches. Your blade slices it in half. Eli, phew! It is like Black Clover. The roiling shadows go sailing past you, kicking up wind and sweeping you off your feet. Eli, ugh! The monster advances on your prone form, but Butterball leaps in front of you. Oh, Butterball, no! Butterball, grrr, no! Eli, no, you're not strong enough. The monster swipes at Butterball and knocks him to the ground. No! Butterball, oh no! He whimpers as he struggles to get up, then moves protectively in front of you again. Eli, Butterball! As you look over at your familiar, you catch a glimpse of his reflection in the water below. Oh, and his reflection, I suppose it's like a bigger version of him that looks more like a wolf. He's so much bigger. He looks different, and the water ripples and glows with a magical energy. Tutorial. You can use this water to evolve your familiar, so he can help defend you from the monster, like in Pokemon. Okay, so this is a premium choice, and yeah, we're going to go for it right here. Are we, or are we going to pause? No, we're going to go for it. Okay, so the free choice is tell my familiar to attack, and the premium choice is tell my familiar to evolve. Let's do it. Eli, Butterball, go into that water. Butterball tilts his head at you before he leaps into the strangely shimmering water. There's a bright flash of light. Butterball emerges from the puddle, larger than before, with spines of ice running down his back and a long tail trailing behind him. And he's like bigger and more ferocious. Butterball, grrr! He turns toward the monster and two spikes shoot out of his back. They stick into the creature, leaving behind large puncture wounds. Shadow monster, grrr! Top dog, you evolved your familiar. Eli, good boy. Butterball, ruff. Butterball pants happily at the praise. Oh, how cute. Eli, come on, Butterball, together. Butterball nods, and you feel a massive surge of power as his magic twines with yours. Eli, whoa! Your whole body glows with a brilliant light that shoots out from you and into the monster. It wails in pain. Shadow monster, roar! Eli, that was crazy. The monster surges forward and slams its fist into Butterball. Eli, Butterball! Butterball, oh no, is he okay? Butterball goes flying and drops to the ground with a cry. His eyes droop shut and he disappears back to the other. Okay, I hope he's just going to go and rest up and be okay. You stare at where Butterball disappeared, heart racing. The monster takes a menacing step toward you, but the sticky material coating its body slows it down. Oh, it's still got the resin. Eli, it's still covered in resin. I could end this if I keep it in place or do some serious damage. I should use fire. You channel your magic into a huge fireball which grows in your hand. Eli, burn! You launch it at the monster. It slams into the creature's shoulder and the resin instantly catches fire. Shadow monster, roar! Eli, yes! After a few moments, the flames burn out, revealing a charred and unmoving monster. The red in the monster's eyes and body fades, leaving behind a cloud of empty smoke. Shadow monster, and it's like fading. Eli, is it over? You watch the creature for a moment more, but nothing happens. You let out a relieved sigh. Eli, I'm still alive, somehow. You look around and get your bearings enough to head toward the mirror leading to Professor Swan's office. Eli, I need to get out of here. You hear a soft whisper like wind moving through the leaves. You turn and look at the shadow monster, which is now leaking black vapor into the air. Eli, what? The vapor swirls through the air, gathering into a smoky mass, growing larger. A familiar shape begins to form, and suddenly, oh no, shadow monster, grrr, he's like, I'm back. Eli, no! The monster lunges at you, but you quickly leap out of the way. You whirl back toward the creature, feeling warmth build inside of you. Eli, that's enough. Light bursts out of you, small flares shooting off your body and slamming into the monster. Yeah, about time she used solar flare. Shadow monster, grrr! It staggers backward, then tries to lunge again, only to stumble. Shadow monster, grrr! The monster's eyes widen and it looks around frantically. You take a step forward and it turns and rushes in the opposite direction. Eli, hey, get back here. You race after it, winding through the strange trees and rocks. Why are we following it? You follow it around a wide tree and spot the monster charging directly for a figure. As you look closer, you realize it's your reflection, except she looks as solid as you are. Not a reflection at all, but a duplicate? Ooh. Shadow monster, shraa! Reflection, ah! The monster tackles your duplicate to the ground. The shadows around it grow and start to overtake her. So, okay, is this a twin? Is this a future self? Is this a nobody? What is this? You channel your magic and conjure a fireball in your hand. You hurl it at the creature. Eli, get off of her! The fireball slams into the monster's back, and the shadows around your duplicate recede. Duplicate? Duplicate. Shadow monster, roar! The monster retreats with a shriek of pain, staggering backward. You hurry over to your duplicate. Eli, are you okay? Your duplicate scrambles to her feet, watching the monster intently. Reflection, it's wounded, but not done yet. Brace yourself. Eli, hey, and then, are you sure you're all right? Or a thank you would be nice. Are you sure you're all right? Reflection, save it. We still have work to do. Okay. While your duplicate speaks, the creature struggles to its feet. Two large vortices appear in its hands, and the wind begins howling as they open. You feel yourself getting sucked toward them, and a mirror goes flying past you, disappearing into the darkness. Your duplicate shouts to be heard over the noise. Reflection, we have to work together. I need you to channel your magic into the ground and make a downward slice with your arm, like a karate chop. Then shout, consume! Your feet skid along the ground as the vortices drag you and your duplicate closer. You channel your magic through your feet and swing your arm in a downward slice. In the corner of your eye, you see your duplicate do the same. Eli, now I have to shout the right word. And shout, and the word is consume. Consume. Eli, consume! Your duplicate grins at you as you pour your magic into the spell. The ground cracks, branching out in a jagged line that centers right below the monster. A fissure suddenly opens. Shadow monster, grrr! The fissure swallows the monster and its vortices and closes without a trace. Eli, is it really gone? As you stare at the space where the monster used to be, you catch sight of an eerie-looking old man standing in the distance. Ooh, and we know this guy. He was the person in the picture of that book that Beckett showed us. Eli, wait a second. That looks like the guy from the library book I borrowed. I think his name was Rafe Highmore. Before you can say anything, you hear a soft thud and look over to find your duplicate collapsed on the ground. You take a step toward her when a massive ball of shadow appears next to the mirror and spits out Professor Swan. Eli, Professor, you're alive! Professor Swan, yes. It seems like that void didn't like me very much. But you're okay. I was beginning to fear the worst. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, Eli. That creature, it was much stronger than I anticipated. It caught me by surprise. She surveys the area, her gaze falling on your duplicate. Professor Swan, oh my goodness, Atlas! Eli, Professor, and then the options are, you know her, or she's hurt. We'll go, Professor, you know her? Professor Swan, of course I do. Eli, but she's been following me since I first got to Pendergast. Professor Swan, when you mentioned a reflection, I thought maybe she was checking in, but I didn't realize she was trapped here. Oh dear. She kneels beside your duplicate, checking her pulse before letting out a relieved sigh. Professor Swan, seems like she's unconscious, but still with us. Professor Swan shakes her head and turns back to you. Professor Swan, let's get out of here. She levitates your duplicate off the ground and brings her to the mirror, with you trailing behind. You both step through it and into her office. Professor Swan sets your duplicate down in one of the chairs, then returns to the mirror you stepped through, tucked away in a back corner of the room. She lifts her hands, which glow softly. Eli, what are you doing? Professor Swan, putting the wards back up. I had to take them down to get to you. To get to you. Professor Swan, we don't want anything coming through, again. She does a complicated gesture over the mirror, nods to herself, and returns to your side. Professor Swan, it looks like you came out of that fight looking all right. Just a couple of bumps and bruises, but that's to be expected. Professor Swan, no permanent damage though, so it seems all that training is paying off. The best defense, you held your own in the fight against the Shadow Monster. Eli, yeah, I actually did pretty well, all things considered. Professor Swan, I knew from the first moment I met you that you were going to go far. Eli, so can we talk about the elephant in the room? Professor Swan, absolutely. She points at the unconscious student lying on the floor. It's like the other girl. Professor Swan, who is that? And did you kill her? Eli, huh? No, she's just unconscious. She was trying to help me before. What I meant was... Professor, how do you know her? You point over at your duplicate, then cross your arms. Swan crosses the room, opens her office door, and gently rolls the unconscious student out. She's like, this one's not important. Once the door is closed, she locks it and wipes her palms on her skirt nervously. Professor Swan, oh, that. I admit, I knew more about your situation than I originally let on, but I could tell you weren't ready, so I lied. Professor Swan, but I promise, I only did that to try and keep you safe. Eli, I can't believe you lied to me. Professor, and then the options are, will you at least tell me why, or I'll never trust you again. We'll go, will you at least tell me why? Professor Swan looks at the ground and lets out a heavy sigh. Professor Swan, there are so many things you don't understand, Eli. I didn't want you to get dragged into it at all. I didn't want you to get dragged into it all. Professor Swan, I knew when you showed up here that something was wrong, but I wanted you to have a chance to be happy. I guess I didn't do a great job. Eli, I know you were trying to help, but how can I even trust that you're telling the truth now? And then, Atlas, you don't have to trust her. At the sound of her voice, you turn toward your duplicate, Atlas, to find her wide awake. Atlas, but you should trust me. Eli, you're joking, right? Every time you show up, it seems like some monster appears and tries to kill me. Atlas, and that's exactly what I've been trying to warn you about. I'm the one who's been protecting you from the beginning. Eli, why would you do that? Atlas, you really don't get it, do you? She rises and turns to face you. She pulls a ripped piece of paper out of her pocket and hands it to you. Oh, and it's like another old photograph, this time of a woman holding a baby with a moon birthmark on its shoulder. Wait a second. That's the other half of the photo I found. Atlas, I'm your twin. Woo, twinning! Item acquired. The Mirror Dimension sword has been added to your desk. Cool. Spell learned. You can now use the fissure spell. Cool. So, ooh, we've got 7 out of 10. Item acquired. The other half of the photograph has been added to your desk. Cool. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. 6 out of 10, I think, if I've counted that correctly. But yeah, that's coming along nicely. And that's it. Chapter 10 complete. Ooh. All right, well, that was a little bit intense, and finally I got to record one episode in one video. It did come out a little bit on the long side, but not too long, so yeah, I think I'll keep it like that. And yeah, so we have a twin, and what is going to happen next? Thank you again all for watching. I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please consider giving them a like. I'm having a lot of fun recording these, and I just want to know that other people are too. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time for the next one. Bye!